When it comes to quality sleep, Ashley has you covered with top mattress brands at winning prices and with special financing options available. You can snooze now and pay later. Plus, your mattress purchase helps give the gift of better sleep to children in need and U.S. Special Operations Forces. Visit your local Ashley store or shop online today and make every snooze count. Financing is subject to credit approval. See store or ashley.com for details.
Rosetta Stone is the language learning program with a lasting impact. I've been using their app to learn French, and it's not just about memorizing words, but actually having real conversations. And it's not just French. They offer 25 languages. Right now, Rosetta Stone has an awesome holiday deal, 50% off their lifetime membership. Every language, unlimited access forever. For anyone keen on diving deep into a new language, check out rosettastone.com. It's a game changer.
Welcome to True Crime Garage. Wherever you are, whatever you are doing, thanks for listening. I'm your host, Nick, and with me in the garage is a man that when he discovered Gronk is having back surgery, he immediately emailed Bill Belichick and began stretching, followed by some deep knee bends. He is, of course, the captain.
Thank you. It's good to be seen and it's good to see you. Get well soon, Gronk.
We were in the garage drinking yesterday, and we're back at it again today. Today we are drinking Vanilla Porter by Breckenridge Brewing in Littleton, Colorado. Garage grade 3 3/4 bottle caps out of 5. This porter has all of the chocolate and roasted nut flavor that you are looking for with a hint of vanilla. I actually thought that they could have gone with a little more vanilla, but that's just me. Breckenridge Vanilla Porter is brought to us by these supreme garage attendees like Amy. Amy recommends trying a Maryland brewed beer. Next, we have Stratopia from Marsh Gibbon, UK. We also have Richie in Vancouver, Washington. That's kind of related to this case, right?
Mm-hmm.
Richie says, try anything from Bridgeport Brewing in Portland, but he especially likes their Kingpin Double Red Ale. We also have Michelle in Toronto. Michelle really digs the show, and she says that we should never deviate from our format. She loves the timeline mixed with the captain's color commentary, and she says, screw grammar, right? Well,
yeah.
I get what you're saying, but the bad grammar, it's not really a planned portion of the format. It's just us being dudes. I mean, of course, we don't have stellar grammar.
There are smart dudes out there that have nice grammar. We're not smart enough to know that we have bad grammar.
That's right, and I'm not the type to just stop the show to correct one word. You know, sometimes I have a typo in my notes or I've just misspelled something terribly, and so I just plow on through and maybe create a whole new word in the process.
Well, and I tend to just drink so much that I don't even know what I'm saying.
Okay, we also have Veronica in High Point, North Carolina. Veronica says she loves the show, she loves the captain, and says, Nick, you are okay. Well, thank you, Veronica. I think you are okay as well. And
Veronica, you're better than okay.
Last but not least, we have Shannon from Parts Unknown. I love Parts Unknown. I'm planning a trip there in 2017. Shannon says we can enjoy a beer on her. So awesome. Thank you all. Thank you, Amy, Stratopia, Richie, Michelle, Veronica, and Shannon for bringing the bucket of beers to the garage for this week's show. And if you want to buy us around for next week's show, go to truecrimegarage.com and click on the donate button.
Also, if you want to follow us on social media, Snapchat, Instagram, Facebook, all that stuff, at True Crime Garage. And now Nick is on Untapped, which if you want to follow his beer selections and his beer drinking habits, check him out on Untapped. A big shout out to DK_FXN and John WHH on Instagram. They sent me some interesting information and it adds to the show. Whether you write to us on social media or the website, we try to take a look at all the cases that people are presenting and we definitely appreciate it. So thank you and much love.
Are you going to say your catchphrase?
We like your gym.
That's right. Gather around, grab a chair, grab a beer, and let's talk some true crime. This is True Crime Garage. And this is the case of the Chi Omega killings.
Frightened co-eds at Florida State University in Tallahassee walked to class in groups today while detectives tried to track a man who slipped into a sorority house early yesterday and murdered 2 women. David Dick reports.
The killer struck first at the Chi Omega sorority house. Police say he simply walked in through an unlocked door. They say he was armed with a heavy oak log. He clubbed and then strangled to death 20-year-old Lisa Levy and 21-year-old Margaret Bowman. At least one of them was raped. Then he brutally beat 3 more sleeping co-eds, Karen Chandler and Kathy Kleiner. Cheryl Ann Thomas was severely beaten in her apartment 6 blocks away. Their conditions today, fair to serious. The killer came in from the night and then returned to it with an ease that has so far baffled police and left most co-eds here terrified. Blood-stained bed sheets and numerous bags of other evidence were prepared at the Tallahassee Police Department for transfer to the crime lab. Sergeant Howard Winkler was one of the first on the scene.
When he hit the girls, I just don't think they had a chance to fight back. I think he just went in and hit. I just don't think they had a chance to cry out.
Captain Burl Peacock of the Criminal Investigation Division says he thinks it will be a very difficult case to solve. What kind of a person do you think is at large?
Well, I'd rather say we've got a very disturbed, sick individual.
A university crime prevention officer visited Florida State sororities today, urging house mothers to take stricter security measures. But many co-eds remained worried and badly frightened.
I think everybody's scared all the time, even just walking to classes. And today we've been keeping our doors locked during the day too, which we don't usually do.
The front door of the Chi Omega house was not only locked today, a policeman stood guard on the other side. The house mother stepped out a few moments but would not talk in front of a camera. She said, "They were just lovely girls. It has been a harrowing experience." David Dick, CBS News, Tallahassee.
FBI agents and Florida police are questioning a man by the name of Theodore Robert Bundy about the killing of 2 Florida State University co-eds in January and attacks on 3 other co-eds. Bundy had escaped New Year's Eve from a Colorado jail where he was a suspect in 36 rapes and murders, mostly in the West, over a 7-year period. He was recaptured Wednesday morning, arrested in Pensacola, Florida, on a stolen car charge. But he gave the police another name, and it wasn't until last night that he was identified as Bundy. All the police are saying for now is that Bundy is cooperating and talking with investigators. The car he was driving had been reported stolen in Tallahassee, the scene of the Florida State campus problem. Leslie?
President Carter leaves today on his...
Pensacola, Florida police are questioning a man they say may be one of the worst sex murderers of all time. We have a report from Bruce Hall.
Police arrested this 31-year-old man after a high-speed chase Wednesday morning in Pensacola, Florida. He claimed to be a Florida State University law student, but now he has been positively identified as prison escapee Theodore Bundy, a suspect in the rape-murder cases of at least 36 young women in California, Washington, Oregon, Utah, Colorado, and Michigan. He is also on the FBI's 10 most wanted list. Among the first to arrive to question Bundy were these detectives from Tallahassee, Florida, where 2 co-eds were murdered and 3 others savagely beaten last month. Tallahassee officials would not talk to the press, but they did talk to the state attorney in Pensacola.
I do know, though, that they told me that he was a definite suspect in their investigation.
It has been learned that Bundy has been living in this Tallahassee apartment since a few days after he escaped from a Colorado prison on New Year's Eve. The apartment is less than a mile from the Chi Omega sorority house at Florida State, where the highly publicized attacks took place in mid-January. When Bundy was arrested, police said he had in his possession 21 stolen credit cards, all from co-eds at the university. This afternoon, Bundy was taken to court, where he was ordered held without bond. He will remain in Pensacola under tight security until authorities can determine if he will be charged with the Florida State University murders and what state has the strongest case against him. Bruce Hall, CBS News, Mobile.
Let's see where we left off here, Captain. Last we spoke, we were talking about Ted Bundy, and last time we saw him, he was locked up in a Utah jail, and he was being charged with the abduction and the attack that he did on Carol DaRonch. This was the woman that he pretended to be a police officer, told her that her car was broken into at the shopping mall, and he needed her to go back to the police department with him so that he could take a statement and maybe she could identify the person that supposedly broke into her car. Nobody broke into her car. This is just Bundy being Bundy with one of his multiple ruses that he would use to get somebody into his vehicle.
Right.
And one thing we got to think about here, when we talk about these type of people, okay,
what kind of people are you?
Serial killers.
Okay.
And one thing that
psychopaths.
One thing that goes unnoticed a lot, or not so much talked about, but one thing I was thinking about last night, in particular with Ted Bundy, is that he had his murder rape kit that he would keep in his vehicle that would travel around with him, and this was, we talked about those things that were found when he was arrested. These were things like an ice pick and a ski mask and gloves and. Sometimes he would have a crowbar in there. I think actually all the time he had a crowbar in there. That seemed to be his kind of go-to. The ice pick, I always wondered why he had that ice pick. I don't know if he was going to, let's say, graduate to a different form of killing, because typically what he would do is hit people over the head with the crowbar so that he could gain control of them. But he didn't kill them in that manner. He was a strangler. He would strangle these women. Usually what he would do is hit them over the head with the crowbar. He's got control of them. He would rape them. And then he would rape them again as he was killing them, as he was strangling them. And sometimes he would even rape them again after they had died. Now, the thing with the ice pick is, people... You see this when you talk about Ted Bundy. You can look up anything on Ted Bundy and pictures, and you're going to see pictures of this ice pick. But I think the ice pick was actually something that he thought he would use to gain access to somebody's home. I think it was more of a burglar type tool that he was going to break in with the ice pick to a house if he needed to.
Well, with Dahmer, for example, like Dahmer's apartment they used that as, here's this crazy psychopath and we need to study him after the fact. In Ted Bundy's case, it seems like it's his car. That his car is the equivalent of the apartment.
You're exactly right. And that's one thing I was trying to touch on here with Bundy and with multiple serial killers. You see this time and time again. The vehicle is as much of a killing tool as that rape and murder kit that he had in the car.
Or the apartment.
Exactly.
Right.
It's another tool. And I'm sure that Dahmer outfitted his apartment in a way that would make killing easier for him or holding them captive easier for him, just as Bundy did with his vehicle. He used his vehicle as a trolling device. I mean, Bundy was driving all the time. He drove constantly. We talk about he was living in Utah and he was driving all the way to Colorado to find victims. But not only was he driving all the time, he was outfitting his car. He was unscrewing the passenger seat. Why would he do that? Well, because if he had to throw a body in there, it would be low. The body would be down inside and it wouldn't be visible to people that he was passing by.
Yeah, or the passenger handle wasn't. There was no handle. So
he removed the handle. So if you're trying to get away from him, you're less likely to be able to do so.
One of the things that I found creepiest about, as far as like serial killer goes and fascination with different killers, Bundy wouldn't be on my top of the list. Like, before we actually started diving into him. One of the things that I thought was so disturbing is how he would like put makeup on some of the victims after they're dead. He's like revisiting the spot where they died, and sometimes, and this is just speculation. I don't think they have any proof of this other than there's now makeup on this body that shouldn't have makeup on it, almost like somebody went back and redid their makeup.
Yeah, well, what he was doing, and a lot of people have speculated that Bundy was a necrophile. Well, yes, he had sex with dead corpses. And so he was,
I'm sorry if you're listening to this on your morning commute and we just said that Bundy had sex with dead corpses.
But he was having sex with dead corpses. He was, in every sense of the word, a necrophiliac. However, there are some killers that their whole reason for killing is to have sex with the dead body. Right. That I don't think was the situation with Ted Bundy. I think his thing that he was after was the rape while committing the murder. I think that was his big thing. With the whole necrophilia thing for him, I think that was just, it was kind of a way to slow him from killing somebody else. You know, he could go back and mentally revisit that victim and revisit his crime mentally and relive it.
Right.
And rather than going out and killing another person because it was easier or something easy to do. Now, the thing with, you said Bundy, you know, wouldn't have been at the top of your list, but I'm sure he's moved significantly up there since we started looking at him. But the one thing that, for me, he has been on the top of my list forever. And the reason being is that he was so unique, especially for the time. And he was such a problem for the investigators. He was doing things at the time that you might see serial killers do more recently, but he knew that it was to his advantage to commit different crimes in different jurisdictions. He knew that the police didn't really talk to one another and that they would have a problem linking these crimes.
But I think that's where primarily Bundy, where serial killers get this idea of when people are profiling a killer, they start saying, "Oh, above level intelligence," and I think it's coming from Ted Bundy. Look at like somebody like Ed Gein or somebody like that. You're not going to see above level intelligence, and I think so. But I don't want to glorify it. I don't want to glamorize him. I mean, this guy was a complete psychopath, and more so, and that's what was fascinating to me when looking into him, is just how sick of a person he was. It climbed on the list, not that I admire the guy in any sense of the term, but just when you think of somebody like Ed Gein, for example, oh man, this guy's horrific. This is disgusting. Bundy was above that, head and shoulders above that.
Oh yeah, big time. I mean, but the other thing too that made him so dangerous was his modus operandi. He didn't have a specific one. You know, where you'll see some killers where, you know, like a long haul killer, their modus operandi is pretty much the same time and time again. You know, I just need to pick up this working girl from a truck stop, and she's in my truck, and now she's mine. She's dead. Mm-hmm. And where with Bundy, he didn't have a typical way of finding his victims. He would adapt to the situation. You know, we didn't talk about all of his crimes, but just kind of a quick overview. You know, he didn't just pick up women that he would trick into getting into his car. No, there were more than one occasion where he would break into a house and he would obtain the victim there. Yeah. He would steal them from their home. And we saw one situation where the girl was living with 4 other people. I mean, how risky is that? He breaks into a home. He could have been seen by any of those other 4 people or fought off. Mm-hmm. And instead he knocks her unconscious and he takes her with him, you know, and what else did he do? He would also just pick up random hitchhikers, you know, he would see an opportunity and he would seize the moment.
Yeah. That's what's kind of strange here is, you know, he's not an opportunist killer all the time. Sometimes he's creating that opportunity. It's really fascinating. I mean, and then what we're going to be talking about today is, you know, the escapes and the trials. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's just a whole nother level of this madness that is Ted Bundy.
And the other thing about his vehicle being his killing tool is, think about that. We talked about the seat, the passenger seat that he would unscrew from the floorboards, and you know, sometimes he would have the seat in, sometimes he would have the seat out. Well, that whole thing, you could kind of figure out what he's doing there, because he needed to remove the seat to hide the bodies as he was transporting them, right? But at other times, he needed the seat to be there. Why? Because if I slow down to pick up a hitchhiker and I have no passenger seat, well, she's not getting in my car.
Right.
So this is, it was definitely his vehicle. The VW Bug was definitely his number one killing tool, in my opinion, as well as the crowbar.
And we talked about this a little bit yesterday, just between me and you. And I thought it was an interesting tidbit to bring up on the show. Did he have some advantage by having a VW Bug? Was there any advantage there? Did women feel less threatened by this? More, it's more of a kind of a, it's more of a college student car, and you'll hear when people talk about the people that came forward and said, "Oh yeah, I was in his vehicle," and I just thought, and one of her lines was, well, here's this college kid, and this is just a college car. There probably was some advantage, like you said, if he was driving a giant monster truck with giant tires, maybe that wouldn't let these women's guard down as much.
I agree. Yeah, exactly. If he had a monster truck, or if he had a white van, the typical
or like
creepy white van,
white Bronco.
Yeah, I don't think as many women would have gotten his car, but his victims that he wanted, his victimology was attractive college-age women. And, they see this somewhat, good-looking man who's well-spoken, and he's driving the typical college boy car. He had
better grammar than we did.
I'm sure that he did.
Right.
So where we left off was Bundy is in jail in Utah. He's being charged with the abduction of Carol DaRonch, and for that he's pretty easily convicted, because she can look right at him and go, yes, judge and jury, that's the guy that tricked me into his car and tried to kill me.
Right.
Now he gets a sentence. It's a 1 to 15 year sentence. So with good behavior, he's going to get out in 1 year's time. Now, during the process of this,
but that's just because it's a single attack.
Yeah,
they're not linking it to everything else.
And here's where the links start to happen. There is a detective. His name is Jerry Thompson. He remembers a similar suspect that was described from a few different cases that was going on. Mm-hmm. And now remember, we had said that there were gas receipts that were found in Bundy's vehicle when he was arrested. Right. Now, these gas receipts would put him in areas and at the same time of other killings that were going on. So while he's sitting there with his 1 year to go, he is extradited to the state of Colorado, because they have now linked him to one of the murders in Colorado. At the same time, the police were searching Bundy's apartment after he was arrested and after he was convicted. And during this time, they found other things too. They found a guide to the Colorado ski resort. This was the Wildwood Inn. Now, remember, this is where a young woman, 23-year-old Karen Campbell, was. She was a nurse from Michigan, but she was on vacation with her boyfriend, and she vanished from the hotel there. And this is at the ski resort while on a ski trip. And so they, with the gas receipts and with this guide to the ski resort, they're able to put Ted Bundy at that place and know that he might have been the one that killed or took Karen Campbell. The other situation that's going on too is they found a brochure. This was an advertisement for the Viewmont High School play. Now, this is where Debbie Kent had disappeared. This is where he was seen in the parking lot going up to different students and trying to get them in his car. So Bundy's been extradited to Colorado, where he's going to be charged with the death of Karen Campbell. Now, during this situation, he's in jail there, right? But he's also assisting in his own defense. And part of that, Bundy is ever so the con man. He's always conning. He's always scheming. That's what makes him so dangerous. And he's always manipulating every situation. And he has told the judge, he said, you know what, since I'm working on my defense, since I'm assisting in my own defense, I need to have access and be treated a little differently than you would treat your typical murder suspect, right? He's saying, I can't be shackled, because I need to be working and I need to be studying and working on my own defense. And on top of that, he needs access to the library where he can do research. So not only is he not shackled, and arguably one of the most dangerous men of all time, in my opinion, he's not shackled. He's manipulated his way into the library. Now, he's in the library.
Well, dangerous, but mainly to women. I mean, not saying that he's above killing a man, but he, his motivations to me aren't just kill willy-nilly.
But he has access to this library. This library is part of the courthouse and part of the jail. So it's on the second floor. They hold court on the first floor, and on the second floor was the library. I believe nowadays it's another court. But he's up in the library and he's working and he's doing his studying. He's probably not really studying. He's scheming the whole time. This is Ted Bundy. Now, he uses how the standing bookshelves, they create aisles with those standing bookshelves?
Yeah.
Well, he used one of those to kind of hide what he was doing, but they had an open window. They would leave the window open on the second floor to get, cool air into the building. So nobody can see what he's doing, but he basically jumps out of the second story window. And this is not like a 8-foot drop. This is a pretty big drop. I would speculate that most people would break an ankle or a leg jumping out of that window. I've seen pictures of it on the internet. It's not a jump that I would make, but he makes the jump, and Bundy's a weird dude, man. He gets lucky. Not only is he scheming, but he gets lucky from time to time, much to our dismay, right? But he should have broken his ankle when he jumped out of that window. He did not. He did severely sprain his leg, and they would see evidence of that later. But somebody spots him and says, "Oh, somebody just jumped out of that window."
Right.
And so they go in and they tell the people in charge, somebody just jumped out of your second story window, and their first thought is, who has access to that? Oh God, I hope it's not Bundy.
Right.
And sure enough, it is Bundy. It doesn't get any weirder than this. I mean, truth is always stranger than fiction, right? And this is like a horror flick, like at the end of the movie when they're sitting in the canoe or the boat out on the lake, and you think everything's safe, and then Jason Voorhees just jumps out of the water all of a sudden. That's this moment. We have this guy he's been charged and convicted of a serious attack on Carol DaRonch in a neighboring state. Now he's in Colorado, having been charged with the murder of Karen Campbell, and he's suspected in the death of this 17-year-old, but not been charged yet. And he's just jumped out of a second-story window, and he's on the loose. I mean, it doesn't get any more terrifying than this.
Well, this is more like when Mike Myers breaks out of the loony bin.
You're exactly right.
It's more like that part. But anyways, let's get back. We'll go back into Bundy right after this quick beer break.
This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. Do you look forward to the holidays? Maybe you struggle with seasonal blues. This time of year can be a lot, and it's natural to feel some sadness or even anxiety about it. But adding something new and positive to your life can counteract some of those feelings. Therapy can be a bright spot, something to look forward to make you feel grounded, and to give you the tools to manage everything going on. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. Find your bright spot this season with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/garage today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/garage.
Rosetta Stone is the language learning program with a lasting impact. I've been using their app to learn French, and it's not just about memorizing words, but actually having real conversations. And it's not just French. They offer 25 languages. Right now, Rosetta Stone has an awesome holiday deal, 50% off their lifetime membership. Every language, unlimited access forever. For anyone keen on diving deep into a new language, check out rosettastone.com. It's a game changer.
At Consumer Cellular, you get the same exact coverage as the largest carriers, but for up to half the cost. Same thing, up to half the cost. Up to half the cost for the same thing. 50% the money for 100% the same thing. I hope I'm making myself clear. Consumer Cellular. When freedom calls, we're here to answer. Call us at 1-888-FREEDOM.
Half the cost savings based on cost of consumer cellular single-line 5GB data plan with unlimited talk and text compared to lowest cost single-line postpaid unlimited talk, text, and data plan offered by T-Mobile and Verizon May 2023.
And we're back. Cheers, everybody.
Cheers. So where we left off now, Ted Bundy he's escaped from the courthouse, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he's jumped out of this window, and somehow he did not break an ankle, didn't break his leg. But remember, there was that person that came in and notified them very quickly that, hey, some dude just jumped out your window.
Right.
So what happens here is he actually, they set up roadblocks because they need to get this guy as quick as they can. And he sneaks past one of those roadblocks. He's on foot. But what he did was he shed his clothes as soon as he jumped out of the window. So not only, this is where we know that he was planning to escape that day. He didn't just get lucky and happenstance. He's like, oh, the window's open, I'm going for it.
Well, yeah, but like we said, he's not only is he a psychopathic murderer, he's a con artist as well.
And whatever garb he was given to wear, being in jail, underneath of that, he had regular looking clothes. So after he jumps out of the window, he sheds these, the jail garb or whatever it is, and he's in regular looking clothes, and he sneaks past the roadblock. Well, he heads up into the Aspen Mountain. Well, now Bundy is, as clever as he is, and as much of a con man and manipulator as he is, he's he can manipulate a jail system or a prison system, but he can't really manipulate the wilderness.
Right, Mother Nature.
Yeah, so he's up there and he's trying to survive as he's eluding capture. And some of the things he does while he's up there, he's breaking into cabins that have nobody in it, and he's stealing, clothes and food, and I think he even took a rifle from one of the cabins. He's become a survivalist, let's say, right? He's out on the run. He's only loose for about 6 days, and they end up capturing him. And he looks, you can find pictures of him on the internet from when he got back from his little trip up in the Aspen Mountain. Mm-hmm. But he looks like he aged 10 years during that 6 days. So he's back in jail, and now they will transfer him to another jail. And this is supposed to be, there's more security at the Garfield prison. Mm-hmm. Now, so they warn him. They warn the prison. They're like, okay, look, this guy, we don't think he just killed this Karen Campbell. Mm-hmm. We think he's killed all kinds of women. And if he gets out, he is going to try to escape. That's who he is.
Right. We've seen this already.
Yeah. And so he's going to try to escape. And if he gets out, he's going to kill as many women as he can. That's just in his nature. That's what he does. He's an evil guy. Mm-hmm. Now, but Ted being Ted, he talks to the guards, he talks to the administrators there, and he has a way of talking to people and befriending people, so they kind of let their guard down.
Yeah, and one of the things that you see in this video, some of the clips, is there's a man walking Ted in, and Ted is handcuffed, and you can tell that whoever's I don't know if this guy's a lawyer or if he's a police officer or whatever he is, but you can see him and Ted joking and laughing at each other while they walk into the courtroom. And we're also looking at this all hindsight. So you have this guy that, as far as, major offenses, he tried to attack somebody. And now we think he's responsible for this murder. We don't have all this evidence. We don't have all this proof. We don't have all the confessions that Ted gave. So him being such a charming guy, I bet a lot of these prison guards just thought, nah, this guy probably didn't do it. Mm-hmm. So, and with him being so charming and almost so normal, I could see why people would be like, well, maybe he didn't do this at the time.
Well, you got to keep in mind, too, who are we dealing with? And I don't think the authorities knew exactly who they were dealing with. Yeah, he was a law student, but he was going into law he wanted to be a politician. And, that's usually the way you come up. And he wasn't going into law necessarily to practice law. I believe he wanted to be a politician. And if you follow his younger life, especially when he was at University of Washington, he's taking part in the Republican Party. You know, he's doing things. Traditionally, what are politicians? They're people that are good at speaking and good at talking and communicating
and
with
good
other
at
people.
Lying. You know?
Yeah, and so this is who he is. I mean, and we talked about he worked at that crisis hotline. This is a guy that liked to talk to people, and again, it lets their guard down. Well, I do have to fault this. I do have to fault the people that worked at this jail because they were warned. Okay, now and think about this too.
And this is the second jail.
Behind the eyes, behind his, you know, he's a. Some people have said he's a good-looking man. Maybe he's an average-looking man. I don't know. But behind this regular-looking dude who is outgoing and who is happy to speak with people and communicate with it, he's charming. Behind those eyes, inside, he looks like Frankenstein. You know, he looks like Frankenstein's monster. And he is an absolute monster. He's one of the worst of the worst. Now, if you could see him, if he looked like Frankenstein's monster, they would have housed him in a much different way. And they didn't, as you said, they didn't fully know what they were dealing with, but they were warned and they let their guard down. And this is on them, you know, and actually things that would take place later, I put a lot of that on them. Now they put him in this cell. Okay. And on the ceiling, there was a light fixture. Now, this light fixture should have been welded to the ceiling. That would be the typical thing in most cells. This one was not. And actually, the jailhouse, they talked about, you know, they looked at the light fixture before they put Ted Bundy in that cell. And they thought, no, it doesn't need to be fixed. There's no way that he can get up there. And furthermore, some of the other inmates start coming to the administrators and to the warden and to the correction officers, and they're saying, you know, at night when we're lying in bed, we can hear somebody up in the rafters, up in the ceiling, moving around at night. Yeah. And we're pretty sure it's Mr. Theodore Bundy over there.
Yeah, I mean, because it wasn't happening before this guy shows up, and now he's here, and we hear this wrestling at night.
Well, and what he did was he was getting money. Okay. Again, everything going Ted's way. He was getting money because there were people back in Washington and people in Utah that were friends of his, and they thought he was innocent. There was actually not a whole lot of evidence in this murder trial, and he's working with his attorneys. He's assisting in his own defense, and actually things are going his way in the court. You know, other than having the brochure. Other than having the map regarding the ski lodge, there's no real evidence other than the gas receipt and this map to the ski lodge.
Well, and this is before that DNA. I mean, they had DNA, but this is, you know, I'm sure that if DNA was more important back then, they probably would have some DNA in this case.
Well, maybe not, because you got to keep in mind that this Campbell lady, at this point, she had vanished. You know, they don't know where she is.
All right, so no body.
Correct.
Right.
And the way that this attack went down, you know, she's a nurse, and her boyfriend is a doctor where she works, and he's older, he's divorced, and he has some children, and they're on vacation together at this ski lodge. And there's a heated pool outside, and they were down poolside, and she decided to return to the room to get a magazine or get something to read. Right. Well, she goes up to get her book or magazine, and she's never seen again. He snatched her somewhere between her walking from the pool up to the room. Mm-hmm. So again, not a lot of evidence, and things are going his way in the courtroom. This case might have gotten thrown out. He may have gotten acquittal on this case. Because what evidence they did have, he was starting to get it thrown out of the trial. And so pretty much it's circumstantial evidence.
Right, and he wasn't the main lawyer in this case.
He's just assisting.
Right, but, I mean, he was an intellectual guy and knew the system. So, I mean, I wonder how much, he had influence over what was happening in the courtroom.
That I don't know, but as I said, he was getting money from his friends from Washington and from Utah to assist with his defense, to pay for whatever it is that he needs to get his acquittal. He had accumulated just over $700.
Yeah, and like we talked about in the previous episode, I mean, he worked, not only was he, a law student, but he worked with the Republican Party, and by having those connections, he had people with power and money.
Well, and $700 back then, I don't know the math on it, but I'm guessing it would be about over, $2,000 or more than $2,000 today.
Yeah, which is not a bad chunk of change if you're in jail.
And somehow he gets a now keep in mind this is jail, so we do have a lot of non-violent offenders that are serving time there. Mm-hmm. And so they have different privileges. I'm sure that they have some kind of workhouse, or they're, as we talked about in the Texas 7, sometimes people work as custodians or repairmen inside the jail itself. Somehow Ted Bundy gets a hold of a saw. So not only does he have this light fixture that's not properly installed in his cell, he accumulates a saw. He has over $700 cash on him. Now, this is on New Year's Eve. So not only is their guard down because they might like the guy, but, they're probably not working as hard as they should be on New Year's Eve.
And maybe less officers on duty.
Well, one thing that was interesting that he was doing that they figured out was with the saw, because you'd think that would create a lot of noise, right? He would wait till the other inmates were showering, because that generates a lot of noise. Mm-hmm. And that's when he would be cutting and doing, tearing things apart to create this escape route through the light fixture. So what he does on New Year's Eve is he's got books and he's got his files for his trial in his cell with him, so he can be working on these things when he needs to. Mm-hmm. He kind of piles them up in his bed and puts the covers over top of it to look like somebody's sleeping in the bed.
Right.
Climbs up into the light fixture, into the ceiling, and now he's running around in the ceiling, and he drops down into, they had like an apartment that was attached to the building, and this is where one of the higher level employees would live, and they happen to be out on a date because it's New Year's Eve. Yeah, right. That's a night that you want to go out, you want to take your girl out.
Yeah, you want to get the midnight kiss, right?
So he drops down into this apartment, and he's able to obtain all of that employee's civilian clothes. So he sneaks out of there.
And they just so happen to fit him?
Yeah, well, I don't know, but it's Bundy. Things seem to go his way.
He couldn't, they couldn't, have a husky guy, like a really husky guy?
Like a 400-pounder.
Right.
So he's now wearing civilian clothes. He has money. And he gets out, and what does he do? He buys a plane ticket, and he flies to Chicago. Mm-hmm. Now, this is going to be, this whole adventure here, this is going to be, planes, trains, and automobiles for Mr. Bundy, because he ends up in Chicago, where in Chicago he takes a train to Michigan. Okay. In Michigan, he steals a car. Now, I read his account on his car thievery. He was not a great car theft, but he said back in the 70s, a lot of people would just leave their keys in the car, and they didn't lock their doors. So
different times back then.
He would just find a regular street with a lot of cars parked on it and just walk up to each one, checking the door handles. If it's unlocked, he would get in, look for a key, and he finds an unlocked door to a car, and it finds the keys. I don't know if it was underneath the seat or up in the visor. But he drives this car down to Atlanta, and then he takes a bus. He wanted to go to Florida. He had this planned out. He wanted to go to Florida. Why? Because think about his victimology. He likes college-age attractive women. That's his victims. That's what he's looking for. He was probably looking for something close to the water, where it's no secret. There's good-looking ladies by the water. And there's plenty of colleges in every state, but there's plenty of colleges in Florida. He doesn't get anything by the water, but he ends up in Tallahassee, Florida. Now, he moves into a boarding house, right, on the campus. for Florida State University. And he's posing as a grad student because by this time he would have been in his 30s, in his early 30s by this time. So he's not of the exact college age, but he's posing as a grad student, and he's going by the name of Chris Hagan. I'm sorry.
Is this when he grew out a beard?
I'm not certain because if you follow the trail of Ted Bundy and you'll look at him throughout the years, whether he be in Washington, Utah, Colorado, Florida, he's in front of the camera a lot because he's arrested a lot. He escapes a lot.
Mm-hmm.
He's on several trials. But he is ever changing his appearance. This was another thing that he did. This is, the mastermind, in quotes, serial killer. He's always changing his appearance. You will see pictures of him where he appears to be a little heavier than other times, and he might wear big, bulky sweaters. He has a beard at times. He's clean shaven at other times.
Yeah, sometimes he has a mustache.
Yeah, he has long hair sometimes. Other times he has very short hair. But he finds himself down in Florida State, in Tallahassee. And he is this is in early 1978. This is actually January 14th. He has only been there for about 2 weeks. Now, he gets to Florida State. And on the night of January 14th, he's going to go out and look for victims. He said many years later that his intention was to go to Florida and assume an identity and become a regular guy, work a regular job, and not commit any more crimes, and he was just going to live a regular life.
Mm-hmm.
I don't believe that for a second, because on the night of January 14th, he goes to, like a dance.
Hold on. I mean, that could have been his intent. And then he gets down
for
there
a couple days.
Right. And then you have these urges, and then you just are what you are. I mean, he is just, a devil in man form.
You're exactly right. And on the night of January 14th, he goes to a dance club. It's like a discotheque. And he's trying to pick up young college-age women at this club.
Mm-hmm.
Well, he's not the Bundy of old. He can't do what he once did. These women didn't find him charming at all. They said I
feel his pain.
They said that he was extremely creepy. He was his eyes scared a lot of them. His appearance scared a lot of them.
He had these blue eyes, but in some ways they are like, it's a pretty blue color if you watch the interviews. But man, as pretty of a blue as it is, there's a super creep factor when you look into them.
Well, I've heard some investigators and some detectives and FBI agents say that, they say they can spot these type of monsters, and they say that the giveaway is in the eyes. Now, I've looked at more pictures of serial killers than most people, and nine times out of 10, I can't see it. Once in a while I can. With Bundy, there's some pictures out there when his eyes aren't right. You know what I mean? In some pictures, you can just see it.
Well, and if you watch a lot of his interviews, especially one of the interviews before his death, he blinks so many times. I mean, it's like he's blinking 3-4 times more than a normal person would blink.
So he's unable to pick anybody up at the disco. None of these women will go with him.
Mm-hmm.
Thank God. But what happens is he has this urge that he has to fill. Remember, I said earlier, this guy is addicted to what he's doing. He's addicted to killing. He's addicted to raping women. He's going to end up with a victim that night, or he's going to end up in jail or dead. That's how this guy works.
Right.
When he doesn't get anybody at the disco, next door is a sorority house, and this is the Chi Omega sorority house. Now, I do got to point out here that I don't believe that he intended, when he left his apartment or his boarding house that day, when he left to go to the disco, I don't think he had any plans of going into the sorority house. He clearly wanted to pick up somebody at the disco.
Right.
When that didn't work out to his way, he started scheming. He started planning.
Well, and like I said before, I mean, he's not just an opportunist killer. I mean, he is one, like, so when he's going to the discotheque, he is trying to create the opportunity. Mm-hmm. He's trying to lure somebody into his trap. When that doesn't work out, now I have to, I'm going to go not create the opportunity. I'm going to try to find the opportunity.
And you heard in the news clip that we played earlier that the killer seemed to have just slipped into an unlocked door into this Chi Omega sorority house. What actually took place was he had gone there at some point late that night, and he found the door unlocked. Now, Ted being the criminal that he is.
Well, I wonder how many houses. I mean, just like when he went to steal cars, you just keep checking and checking. How many houses did he check that were locked?
Well, he went and checked the sorority house, and then he decided to wait. He wanted to wait until he thought that most, if not all, of the girls inside would be asleep. This would make his attack much easier. And
like we talked about before, the other attacks, he would attack somebody while somebody's sleeping in the next room. So, I mean, he's done this before.
Yeah, he's no stranger to this form of attack. He goes around to the back of the sorority house and he finds a log. And he goes into the sorority house, and I don't know how many persons were living, how many young ladies were living in there at the time.
Right.
But the short of it is he attacks 4 of them. And he probably raped 3 or 4 of them while he was in there. But it was a frenzied attack. He went in with that log, and he's bashing them over the head while they sleep. And he's attacking them basically room by room. In the end, out of the 4 girls attacked, he ends up killing 2 of them. I believe that he probably thought that all 4 were dead before he left the house. When he's leaving.
Yeah, I want to assume that he would just walk out thinking that, somebody's going to live after this.
Now, here's somebody that gets lucky. As he's leaving, there is a young lady that is she is, let's say, hiding in the shadows. Mm-hmm. She sees him leave. She's able to make a description. She's able to figure out who this guy is, because she sees his face as he's leaving, and he's leaving the house with the log in hand. He goes down the street.
Like I said, I mean, devil in man form.
And then so this young lady she not only witnesses him leaving the house, but she sees what took place in the house very quickly after he leaves. So the police...
Well, yeah, she sees the carnage, right?
Exactly. And she has notified the authorities. So Bundy, rather than fleeing the area, I mean, he's out walking around and can hear sirens. Mm-hmm. And another, a gentleman driving a vehicle, he spots Bundy. He's down the street and he's still holding this log.
And I'm sure he's covered in blood.
Oh yeah, definitely. And what does he do? Instead of fleeing the area, this is how much of a monster he is. Think about this. Mm-hmm. I talked about him being addicted to killing. This is like, when you have somebody that is addicted to smack. All right, let's say you're addicted to smack.
Right.
And you decide you're going to go off and you're going to go live somewhere for 6 months and get clean. He was addicted to killing, and he gets locked up for quite a bit of time. He can't kill anybody while he's locked up. And whether or not he actually intended to go live a regular life, he can't do that. This is like the guy that gets clean and then goes out and binges one night and does so many drugs that they end up dead.
Right.
He's able to hold off only so long, and now he's going to binge. He's going to binge that night, and he attacks 4 women and just blocks away from the sorority house. He breaks into another home, and he attacks a woman there. That attack is cut short because I don't know why I don't know if something prevented him from
or if she fended off the attack,
killing her all the way, or if he in this situation as well thought that she was dead as well. He left there, and then he goes to another home, and he has the intention of doing this again. Well, he's unable to do so because somebody living, this was like one of those doubles, so there's a neighbor that's sharing a wall. Well, the neighbor that's sharing the wall starts banging and pounding on the wall because they must have heard him break into the house.
Yeah.
Well, he is still not satisfied, so what he does is he masturbates on the bed. Oh. And then
hold on. I wasn't ready for all that. Okay, continue. Okay.
Then he leaves and he returns to his apartment. Now, some of his neighbors see him that night, and the people that live around the area, if you could see pictures of this, everybody lives very, very close. And he had actually spoke to plenty of those people in the short time that he was there. Now, that night when he returns, these same people are talking to him, and they say he's not even like human. He doesn't even seem to be human.
Well, that's what I said. I mean, I believe the two sides of him. You know, he's very much. I mean, the mythical, not the devil with the horns and all that, and you know, like horse legs or whatever. But the devil, when we talk about like the Antichrist, right? Mm-hmm. And we talk about here's this guy that's going to come to power, and they're going to be so charming, and they're going to be a great speaker and all these things. That's like the two sides of him. The one side of him is here's this stand-up guy. He's sweet. He's charming. He's a man on a mission. And then the other side of him is pure evil.
Yeah.
It's very devil-like where, you know, because he was given these talents of being outspoken, being a charming individual, it let him do his evil deeds.
Mm-hmm. Now, again, he's in this, like, they say he looks like he's in a trance. And as you were saying, you know, this is like the monster rising to the top of the water. You know what I mean? The monster has come out in him, and he can't suppress this monster that night. And even though he's left and he's returned to his apartment, he's still in this frenzy. And they say he's incoherent. He can barely talk. He doesn't make any sense.
Well, and I wonder if he would get into some kind of, murderous Zen state, you know, because of the adrenaline, because of the addiction, you know, if we think that there is some sort of addiction and there's some sort of high he's getting, then what kind of state does that bring him into?
Well, it's like what OJ said, right? In his book, If I Did It.
Yeah.
You know, what does he say? That, well, if I would have done it, I would have been in a state that, you know, I wouldn't have known what was going on, and I would have felt like I blacked out. And when I come to, then I see the result of what has happened. You know, almost like you're some murderous zombie or something temporarily, or the Wolf Man. You
keep on bringing up like the Wolf Man in Frankenstein. No, he's the devil. I mean, this is this is evil monster.
Well, not too long after this horrible attack at the Chi Omega sorority house, he attacks a young girl. She's a 12-year-old girl, and he takes her from her school. This is much like we saw that he did in Utah. And he ends up getting caught, right? They chase him down in Pensacola, Florida, and he's apprehended, and now they want to question him about this stuff in Florida because it's all very obvious to them right now, right? It's very obvious that we got this horrible dude. We had no clue who did this killing at Chi Omega, but now we've apprehended Ted Bundy, who's certainly capable of doing these things. Right. And then on top of that, we have the lady that saw him leaving that night. She identifies Ted Bundy as the guy that was leaving the sorority house. And then we have
the other three that were attacked that are still alive.
I don't think they were able to identify him. I think they were attacked so brutally that
possibly, or in the dark too.
Well, and on top of it, I think he hit them when they were sleeping.
Yeah.
So they may have been unconscious the entire time. Hopefully,
right. But we have the lady leaving. We got the guy driving his car. We have the other lady being attacked in the double that could have identified him.
Well, the other people that identified him were all the girls that he went up to at the discotheque that was right next door to the sorority house. They were like
creepy old dude.
They're like, yes, that's the guy that was at so they know he, just from those girls, they know he was at least next door. And then he spotted with the killing weapon, with the log in his hand, coming out of the sorority house by the other girl.
I mean, I'm glad we're covering this case because being 35, I mean, I'm clearly too old to go to the discotheque.
That's right. You would strike out
every time.
So he decides that he is going to represent himself at his trial for the deaths of the Chi Omega girls.
Yeah,
I say girls, but
ladies,
I'm an old dude. They're young ladies. Now I tell you what.
You tell me what.
I'm going to tell you what.
You tell me what.
Anybody listening, if you have any extra time today or later this week, Google and find some clips of Ted Bundy representing himself at trial.
Yeah.
And I tell you what, I don't want to try to make humor out of such a tragedy and such a horrible situation.
Mm-hmm.
However, there are some, what I find to be humorous parts of that trial, because
very humorous. Yeah.
He's sitting there at the table. I'll give you one story, right?
Okay.
He's sitting at the table, and there's an officer that is being, he's up on the stand, and he's giving his testimony. And now Bundy's going to have the opportunity to cross-examine the witness.
Yeah. I mean, like, look, just the fact that we know hindsight, right? That he's one of the most notorious serial killers of all time. He was on his defense before. Now he's escaping, he escaped from jail twice. Now he created these other murders. Now he's not on the defense team. He is the defense.
Yes. And he has people, counsel that he's working with, and you can see this on some of these clips. But in this clip in particular, he's like leaning back in his chair, and he's talking to, I guess, the people assisting in his defense. And he's got one of those long yellow legal pads, and he's like kind of making some notes on it. But he's supposed to already be standing up and cross-examining the witness. So the judge has to remind him, But this must have taken place multiple times that he's just not ready, because the judge doesn't even explain to him, you need to be ready. The judge just simply calls out, Bundy?
Right, because, look, he went to law school, but he didn't finish. Right. And so, you can defend yourself, but they're going to treat you like you should know what the heck to do. Mm-hmm. And clearly, he doesn't know what to do, and he thinks he is so smart that he can outsmart the system. So he's parading around as if he watched a bunch of Matlock series, like he's walking around like, his shit don't stink. And I was born to do this.
Yeah.
And he has this very odd thing where he is disassociating himself with the murderer. So he's Bundy, the lawyer, in his brain, and he's defending Bundy, the killer, which he clearly doesn't think he's the killer.
No. And the judge just calls out Bundy, and then Ted Bundy gets up, and he's going to cross-examine this officer that's just, told his whole story.
Right.
And so he asked the officer, he says, officer, when was the first time that you spoke with Theodore Robert Bundy? And the officer says, well, I spoke to you on this date. And he says, was that at this location? And the officer says, yes, it was at this location. And he says, what time did you speak to Theodore Robert Bundy? And again, the officer, who's getting pissed off because of the
arrogance
of this guy,
and the oddness of this,
this crazy situation. He says, I spoke to you on this date at this location. I don't remember what time it was.
Right, I spoke to you, not this guy that you keep asking.
And Ted
me
Bundy
about.
goes, well, then how do we know what you're saying is true if you cannot recall the time, that you cannot there's no record of this conversation with Mr. Theodore Robert Bundy? And the officer, getting a little heated, says, again, I know I spoke to you at this location.
Yeah.
And then Ted goes, no further questions, Your Honor. And then he goes and sits down.
My favorite story my favorite thing that I noticed when I was watching the footage is he, at one point, he's making some statement, and I maybe he's talking to a cop, or I can't remember who he's talking to somebody on the stand, and you can tell that he's just really enjoying himself, and he thinks he's winning. You can, like, as the trial goes on and on,
he has swagger about him in the courtroom.
Yeah, but it's like, as it goes on and on, the swagger becomes more and more like, I got this shit, right? So then he's talking to some witness, and he goes over to the jury. You know how lawyers do, like, I'm going to go approach the jury and then get them on my side. And he approaches them, and he kind of leans towards them. And the defense at this point, or the prosecution at this point, actually thinks, we don't know what the read on the jury is. Mm-hmm. They thought, this guy is very charming and very intelligent, at least in the courtroom, and maybe the jury's buying this stuff. Well, when he leaned towards the jury, all the jury members leaned away from him.
And I think you even hear one of them kind of gasp, like,
right.
"Oh, we didn't realize we were going to get that close to him."
Right. Yeah, we understand that he's the lawyer, but he's the killer. So I think they knew at that moment, no, the jury is afraid of him, and probably based off that fear, he'd be found guilty.
Yeah, and you're exactly right. You do not have a good defense if the jury itself is afraid of you, Yeah. And it didn't take long to convict him. The trial might have been longer than it needed to be, but on July 24th, 1979, the jury deliberated for less than 7 hours before convicting him of 2 murders in the Chi Omega attack, and including 3 counts of attempted first-degree murder for the other victims as well. At the trial, the judge he does impose death sentences for the murder convictions.
Mm-hmm. And this is happening in Florida, so they don't dilly-dally around. They're not going to wait 30 years to try to kill you.
Yeah, and you know what? There is a strange situation regarding the Bundy case itself. I read this, I think it might just be a rumor, so I'm not going to say where I read it. But there's a statement that when Bundy was working with his counsel in the state of Colorado, when he was going through that trial before he escaped the second time and made it all the way to Florida, that during the course of working with his counsel, he had asked the attorney, what state are they most likely to put you to death for murder? And the attorney had told him, probably Georgia. No, wait, Florida. Florida seems, they seem to execute people faster there. And, nowadays we know it is Texas, that executes people the fastest. But back then it may have been Florida. And, if that is true, that he asked the attorney that, and then he went to Florida, do you think he had a death wish? Do you think he had some kind of, there's something to that?
Yeah, I wonder if, like I said, there's kind of 2 sides of him, and maybe on some level, he realized, look, I can't stop.
Well, there was another serial killer, and he's been put to death since this, but I heard him say in an interview that he was trying to speed up the course of the death sentence. He wanted to be executed as fast as possible. And his explanation for this was, I kill people. That's what I absolutely love and enjoy, killing people. And if I ever get out, I'm going to kill a whole bunch of people. And he doesn't even think it's wrong. In his opinion, killing people was not wrong, the serial killer.
Right.
And he says, but I'm locked up and I'm in prison and I can't kill anybody in here. So I don't want to be on this planet any longer.
Right.
And what this particular killer did was he actually killed somebody while he was in prison because they wouldn't speed up his death sentence.
Well, then, yeah, I'm going to make myself a real big problem in here and start killing people in prison.
Well,
and then you're going to have that on your head, and you're going to have to get rid of me.
You're exactly right. That's exactly what happened, because the court system come out and they said, well, you have to go to trial for this other death now. And he comes back to the prison administrators and the court system, and he says, guess what? I'm going to, if you're going to delay my death sentence, I'm going to keep killing people in prison every chance I get until then, and all those deaths will be on your head. So I don't know if the thing with Bundy is absolutely true or not, but I did find it interesting that he asked about what state would kill him or kill someone the fastest.
Yeah, I wonder where he's going through. And once he gets to jail, we're going to see him really start opening up. And what is his motivation for talking about these other killings? I'm not really for sure. Maybe to stay off the death penalty for a while. I'm not really for sure. I can't get inside the devil's brain. But there's so much more to talk about with Bundy, and then his involvement in another case, and that's something I think we should get to tomorrow. So how about a recommended reading?
Yeah, sometimes when we do these double episodes for a case, I don't always have 2 books to present, but there's so many Bundy books out there.
Because you don't like doing your job.
That's right. I'm slacking off. But
he doesn't like you. He doesn't want you to read and get smart, people.
There's a lot of Ted Bundy books out there, and there's a lot of good ones. And this one is one that came out relatively recently. This is called I Survived Ted Bundy by Rhonda Stapley. Now, who is Rhonda Stapley? Well, she was a good, innocent Mormon girl. And of course, Ted Bundy is one of the most notorious serial killers of American history. Well, their paths crossed one quiet autumn afternoon. And
and you'd hear her in our first trailer.
Yeah, the first episode of Ted Bundy, she's the one that got in the vehicle. She missed the bus, and she was waiting for the next bus and decided to hitchhike and she got into the wrong car. Now, this is a situation, too, where he thought he had successfully killed her. I recommend picking this book up. It's called I Survived Ted Bundy by Rhonda Stapley. Another interesting thing with this book, too, is Ann Rule did the foreword. Well, who is Ann Rule? Well, she is the woman. She's very famous. She's, God rest her soul, she was one of the best true crime authors of all time. She passed away, I believe, 2 years ago. But she, as said, one of the best true crime authors of all time. She happened to work with Ted Bundy at the crisis hotline.
Yeah, she was the lady that called in the tip about him.
Exactly. So she wrote the foreword for this book, and I believe that she had a hand in getting it published as well. So pick up I Survived Ted Bundy by Rhonda Stapley. You can do that by going to truecrimegarage.com and click on the recommended page. You'll see our books that we've recommended on there. You click on the Amazon banner. You buy the book. You buy some things for Christmas. It helps out our show.
Yeah, because you can buy anything through that banner. I just bought a really nice, fancy coffee mug. It says, coffee makes me poop. You can pick up anything on Amazon. That's my goal every week, is to try to find something very odd to buy through Amazon. And it gives a little love back to Nick and the Captain.
That cool parlor guitar that you were showing me, is that
That's
something
Amazon.
I can pick up on Amazon?
Yeah, I bought a little acoustic guitar. I'll sing a little song on Instagram someday.
Okay.
Anyways, for anything, or everything, True Crime Garage, check out truecrimegarage.com. And again, social media, Snapchat, Instagram, now with Untapped, if you want to follow Nick's beer journey. And all that is at True Crime Garage.
And I should point out, you say now I'm on Untapped. I've actually been on there for a long time under a different name. I'm just under True Crime Garage now. So I'm easy to find if you want to try to send me a friend request, even if it's Veronica who thinks I'm just okay. That might be acceptable. But so when you get on there, don't assume that I just signed up like a week ago and I've consumed 1,600 beers in the course of that time. I've been on there for a while. So
he drinks a lot of beer. True Crime and beer. That's what we do.
The one thing I wanted to mention too, truecrimegarage.com. My favorite part of our website is the blog. I like when listeners get on there and they post things, and we read them and we respond. But my favorite is when a listener will post something, and some of our listeners have really good theories and really good insight on some of these cases, and they bring up good questions. But my favorite is when other listeners respond to those posts.
Right. Responding to the listeners.
Yeah, because I get to get on there just like a regular fan and read what everybody's posting. And
we don't claim
true crime
to be
fix that day.
Yeah, we're not experts. We're just
within these four walls. We are.
Well, we're experts of the garage, but that's about it. And it's really about this community. We call it the True Crime Army. And maybe we're not your favorite show, but we're your second favorite show, right? But it's a big community, and by bringing attention to these cases and being fans of this genre, we are starting to make a difference in the actual world. Anyways, thanks for the support in season 3. I hope you're enjoying this multiple part on Ted Bundy. Happy season 3 finale. This is part 2.
We're gearing up for season 4.
Part 3 tomorrow.
Tomorrow, coming at you live.
Well, it won't be live, but
until then, be good, be kind, and don't litter.
You can start your day off right when you find a professional on Angie to get your plumbing right first. Connect with skilled professionals to get all your home projects done well. Visit Angie.com. You can do this when you Angie that.